right now on 97.3 ESPN is our Sixers insider over for 97.3 ESPN.com. That is Paul Hudrick at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. Paul, how you doing today?
Doing great, Josh. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. Before we get to the plethora of Sixers stuff, I was told to ask you how your day was because Mike Gill, I don't know if he was supposed to or not supposed to tell the world that you had a bit of a rough day today. So
Yeah, no, I'm okay. I've had a rough couple of days, if I'm being honest, but yeah, just spent the day at urgent care for some pretty intense poison ivy on my legs that is very uncomfortable, but I'm gutting it out. Here we are, and getting through it.
Well, if anybody understands working through uncomfortable, it's me with all my chronic health problems. So trust me, I sympathize with you, even if it is only something like poison ivy. So hopefully it gets better soon, man, okay?
I appreciate it.
Okay, here's where I want to start. And listen, I think that we've had some time to remove ourselves from Sunday night. But my biggest thing with Sunday night was, and you tell me what you think of this, Paul, I felt that Ben Simmons didn't lose the game. Danny Green not being there didn't lose the game. Doc Rivers didn't lose the game. Everyone lost the game to me because I saw a team that played horrible on the offensive end. Joel Embiid had 8 turnovers. It felt like they could do nothing right for stretches of the time. And it just seemed like they forgot how to play basketball almost at certain stretches. And I just feel like this team just never had it in them. And by the end of the game, they just looked spent.
They look tight to me. I mean, I saw that from like the very beginning of the end. They just looked tight, making a lot of weird mistakes. I think they had 17 turnovers on the game as a team, as you mentioned. Joel Embiid had 8. And yeah, I mean, to make it clear, Ben Simmons deserves a lot of blame. He is clearly going through some type of mental issue in his play, and I don't really know how to describe it or what to say about it, other than it's something that he's going to have to work out, and he's going to have to work it out in a hurry in order for him to be a part of the Sixers' future. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I blame a little bit of everything. Ben Simmons does get blamed. Doc Rivers gets blamed. I said after Game 5, Dwight Howard wouldn't play for the rest of the series, and I think you saw the minutes when he played. They didn't go very well in Game 6 or 7, really. His just stubbornness to keep wanting to go to these units with 4 bench players and 1 starter, just it didn't work through most of the playoffs, and I don't know why he continued to go back to it. And just the way he staggered, I think he could have done a much better job there. Tobias Harris, he was only okay, I would say, in Game 7. I thought he had a lot of opportunities at the rim that he missed. I thought perhaps at times he looked a little tight. And yeah, just the team as a whole. I thought, with Joel Embiid, Atlanta showed him a lot of pressure. That they basically almost sent 3 guys on him on almost every single possession. And I thought he tried to do too much. I think he tried to, Doc had referenced that before, that too many guys are maybe trying to play a little hero ball and trying to win games by themselves. And I think you can count Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris as 2 of those guys that were trying to do that. And yeah, it's Josh. Sometimes I think we all tend to want to focus on one thing, but you don't lose basketball games. You especially don't lose 7-game series because of one thing. You lose it because of many things. And I think it's sure, Ben Simmons is right at the top, but all those other things that we talked about, I think are just as important when you're talking about why they lost the series.
And we'll certainly get to Ben because I don't want to get him at the top because I feel like that's a whole nother situation. Ben is like a galaxy unto himself, and that the Sixers are like an entire universe around that galaxy. Okay, but to me, I know people are acting like, oh, Daryl Morey didn't say anything today. First of all, he didn't have to say anything. What you know is Daryl Morey's record. The dude was in Houston for 14 years. If we know anything about Daryl Morey, is this, Paul. The dude doesn't sit on his hands. The dude is not afraid to make changes. I mean, he literally had to make the transition from the McGrady Yao Ming era to the Harden era. And if it wasn't for the Chris Paul injuries, the Rockets might have been in the NBA Finals. So, you know what? Daryl Morey is not going to sit there and just be like, we're good enough. We'll run it back again next year. This isn't Brett Brown and the cabal running the Sixers organization anymore. People want to blame Daryl Morey for the sins of previous GMs, and I am not going to do that, Paul. I'm going to let this guy go out there and do his job.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of points you make, and when you talk about Daryl Morey, I want to say one of his comments there that I think stood out to me the most, and I think any good executive, this should be the way they are. He said, "We don't want to overreact to what we just witnessed, but we don't want to underreact either." And that's exactly where we should all be. I get it, as fans, a lot of people are very emotional, and their initial reaction is trade Ben Simmons right now. Take whatever you can get. I don't care for a bag of basketballs. And it's like, well, no, you don't do that. That's not the way this works. This is still a guy who's 24 years old, who has still made 3 all-star teams and was a runner-up for the Defensive Player of the Year. You don't give away a player like that, despite what we just witnessed. And Daryl Morey's not going to do that. I think his approach, and we got to give him some. I think not only his track record with the Rockets, I think what he's already done as Sixers, president of basketball operations, what he's already done in that role should give him some leeway. He took this job right before the season started. I mean, right before the draft in an already truncated offseason, he took this job then. So he really didn't get a lot of time. And even in that time, he drafted Tyrese Maxey. He traded Al Horford's contract away and got Danny Green back in return. He traded for Seth Curry, who was arguably the Sixers' second best player in the playoffs. He gets a young backup 5 in Tony Bradley, who gave them some really good minutes this year, who he was able to use to get George Hill. So, I mean, the track record is not only, like you said, 14 years in Houston and the things he's done, and the way he's remade that team and remolded that team around James Harden, but just in the little time he's been with the Sixers, I am very intrigued to see what he does with a full offseason and a full season of getting to see how this team works, and now a full offseason to see the moves he can make and to make calls and to see what he can do and to see what kind of deals he can find.
Now, before we get to, again, the Ben Simmons galaxy, I know there are some free agent situations with this team. Can you explain some of those to the audience and where you think the Sixers' priorities will be with guys who may be coming and going?
So Danny Green is the most marquee free agent they have. Right. Personally, just with their cap situation and where they are, I would be kind of surprised to see him come back. Now, maybe, they do have their taxpayer mid-level exception if Danny Green is willing to come on, a cheaper deal than what he had this year. He is a little bit older. He is coming off an injury. So I don't know. I don't know what the market's going to look like for him. My gut tells me, though, when you look at a Matisse Thybulle who's waiting in the wings, when you look at a Shake Milton who they want to develop more, Tyrese Maxey, obviously, who they want to get more playing time, I just am not 100% sure where Danny Green would fit into that. So that's the biggest name. Furkan Korkmaz is another guy. I have a feeling that the NBA loves shooting. That's the trend right now. And Furkan Korkmaz, when he gets hot, and he can really help space the floor for a team. So I would expect him to maybe go to a team that can maybe give him a little bit more money, can maybe guarantee him a little bit bigger of a role. I'm not sure he's back either. Down the line, George Hill is a guy who there is an option for, I think it's around $10 million, or they can could walk away, buy him out for I think $1.9 million. So that's kind of a decision there. For me, I hang on to George Hill because I would like to see him to start the season and see if he can give me anything as a backup point guard. If not, that $10 million in salary could do them some good in a trade down the line. So I think keeping George Hill makes more sense than buying him out in that regard. Other than that, Josh, I think one of the things that, if you're a Sixers fan, one of the things that should make you optimistic is that you have a lot of guys coming back. You have a lot of guys who are under contract. Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, all under long-term deals. Matisse Thybulle will be back. Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton, Isaiah Joe, Paul Reed. All those guys are going to be back. So they're going to be bringing pieces back that can help them, and then hopefully they can make some other moves around the margins. Replace some of these other guys we're talking about, and we'll see what happens. But the free agent stuff, I'm not as worried about with them. You're probably going to lose Danny Green, and that's going to hurt. But I think you can find ways to supplement the losses of the guys that you're going to lose.
Now, I think one of the ways to supplement that is through what you said earlier with trades, and that what leads us into the Ben Simmons thing. Now, my position is this, Paul. And my position is I don't hate Ben Simmons. I don't love Ben Simmons. But I think he needs help. And I don't mean like basketball help. I think Ben needs to see a shrink, a therapist, a pastor, a counselor. He needs to grab a Bible. I don't know what it is. He needs something because there are times that he has this look in his eyes. There's something wrong there, man. There's some kind of disconnect. And when you read the Yaron Weissman article on Fox Sports about the conversation with him and Ben, the fact that Ben keeps circling back around this circular reasoning, like he's almost a politician trying to rationalize why he voted for a bill. Like, it's like this guy needs help, and I don't think he's ever going to get better or find that help in Philadelphia. I am worried about him that if he keeps going down the path that he's going down, something destructive may happen to him or in his personal life. Because when Doc Rivers turned around the other day, I think it was yesterday, and said, if my family's ever gone through things that Ben Simmons is going through, and I'm like, excuse me? If it's that serious, then Ben Simmons is the basketball player I'm not worried about. I'm worried about Ben Simmons, the person. And he may need just to get out of Dodge to finally deal with that situation.
Yeah, when this was all going on, I rightfully criticized him as a basketball player because he wasn't giving the team what it needed, and he was criticizing himself. And it was fair game. There is clearly something, and he has referenced it. There is something mentally going on with him, and I don't want to go too far down that because I don't want to speculate. I know there's some stuff out there with his family situation. I don't want to go too far down that because that's, quite frankly, that's not my business, not my concern. My concern is, what does Ben Simmons look like as a basketball player? And yeah, I think there is something there underlying because look, Josh, even the most avid Ben Simmons haters who are just having a field day right now, you did not envision Ben Simmons having the worst free throw shooting postseason in NBA history. No one pictured that. You did not picture him just flat out deciding not to dunk basketballs at the rim. Like, the player that he was, even going back to last year 2 years ago in the playoffs, he wasn't like that Toronto series. Yeah, he wasn't very good, but it wasn't like this. Like, this is something beyond that. Like, there is something going on. There is a mental block and a mental issue that he needs to get through. The team needs to help him get through. As for can he figure it out in Philadelphia? I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that. I think he trusts Doc Rivers, which I think is a good start. I don't know. I mean, him and Brett Brown, the relationship wasn't bad, but wouldn't say it was great either.
Right.
I think he's really bought into what Doc Rivers is selling to him. I think he's really trusts Sam Cassell. So I think those things are positive things. Daryl Morey mentioned it, and Doc Rivers mentioned it yesterday that Doc Rivers and Ben Simmons have already met and discussed the offseason plan and what he needs to do and what their approach is going to be and all that. Doc said they're going to meet again, and they're going to meet throughout the offseason to discuss things. So I think those are positive steps. Now, I get the people that say, well, it hasn't happened yet. Why is it going to happen now? I don't have a good explanation for that. But I think if you're the Sixers and if you're Daryl Morey, you're not giving this guy away because that would be foolish to me. You don't give a player like this away, especially like Josh, let's say even the desire is to move on from him. I still think you keep him going into the season because you want teams to see him and remind them of why he's so good and why he could help them. So you want him to play some regular season games just for the mental aspect of for other teams to see him having success and doing good things and to be reminded of why he's special because he is still special. He has special talents that not every guy has, but he just also has those glaring flaws. And right now that the mental hurdle, it's not allowing him to overcome those flaws.
Yeah, and listen, again, I don't hate or love Ben Simmons. I know I've been accused of both at different points of time, but for me, I just don't. I feel like it's like Carson Wentz in some ways. Like, he just needs to get out of town to move on with his life kind of thing. That's just my personal perspective. But I like what you said there. You said that they need to rehabilitate his value, basically. You can't trade him and get nothing in return, which I don't know if they would get nothing in return, but I think Daryl Morey, some Neanderthal, doesn't know how to make a trade, for goodness sake. But I just think that Morey's going to find a way to move on from him. I really do. Because to me, Joel Embiid's a superstar. And to me, he is some strange combination, Joel Embiid, of Bill Walton and Hakeem Olajuwon. And I don't think you give up on that ever, ever, ever. Ben Simmons, you can give up on. And I think that whether it's this offseason or, as you said, maybe during the season, they're going to move on from him. And I think Daryl Morey is going to make a trade that's going to blow everybody's socks off because that's what he does. He makes moves that people never see coming. No one expected Harden to be who he was. No one expected them to get Chris Paul. No one expected the Rockets to do a lot of things they did. And that's because Daryl Morey is just that much of a mad scientist.
For sure. I would say I would disagree with the one way you phrase. I wouldn't say that they are necessarily giving up on Ben Simmons. And I think it goes back to the other thing you talked about. It's more about Joel Embiid is in his prime. He was arguably the best player in the NBA this season, and he needs help. And that window, that window that was once as wide as anyone could see is now dwindling because we don't know how healthy he's going to be. We don't know how long he's going to hold up. And he is, like I said, just entering his prime. So that, to me, is the bigger thing, is that you need to capitalize on that. And right now, I don't think Ben Simmons, to your argument, I don't think Ben Simmons is the guy that can do that can help him, because I think Ben Simmons needs to work some things out. And I don't know that the Sixers can afford to have that patience. And I agree. Daryl Morey, I'll say this. If they do move Ben Simmons, it's because they're getting something good in return. They're not going to, like, I've seen some things out, like some of the trades I've seen out there, like for D'Angelo Russell. No, you guys, I don't think anyone who would make that trade has not watched D'Angelo
Paul,
Russell.
you know the reason why. There's a contingent of people who are obsessed with D'Angelo Russell. It's like the Kwame Brown truthers. Like, there's people who they think D'Angelo Russell is like something that he's never going to be.
No, and listen, he had an all-star season, all the credit in the world, and then ironically, Ben Simmons is the one who exposed him in the playoffs and completely shut him down in that Brooklyn series. But yeah, I mean, listen, you could talk me into certain things. Like 6 months ago, would I have traded Ben Simmons for Zach LaVine? No, I would not have done that. But now, would I do it now? Yeah, I would. And just I will say that I still value Ben Simmons a lot. So I want something, not only something good, I want something that fits. I want something that makes Joel Embiid better, that makes the team better. Right. I'm not just going to do it again just to get something. Like I need something really good. I need an all-star caliber player back. I need a shot creator back, a guard that can create offense and score the basketball and isn't afraid to shoot the basketball. I need those things. If I'm going to give up a guy like Ben Simmons, and if I don't get that, if that's the best thing I get is, Gershon Rosas calling me and offering me D'Angelo Russell for him, no, I'm walking away from that. I'm not interested in that at all. Then I saw another thing like Andrew Wiggins and picks. No, I am not doing any of those things. I need viable NBA players that are going to help me next year, and that can, help supplement Joel Embiid to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, anybody who mentions a mediocre former top pick and picks in an exchange for Ben Simmons, I have zero interest in as well. Correct. Paul Hudrick joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. All right, so with all that being said, the other side of the coin also with the Sixers, before I let you go, is Embiid only has 2 more years on his current contract. We know that he is technically going to be extension eligible soon. If you're the Sixers, are you looking to try to get him locked up again in the next 2 years so he doesn't run out of the contract, or are you maybe letting the next season play out before you make that decision?
When the moment comes that he is allowed to sign that contract, I'm putting it in front of him. Okay. This is a guy, like I said, to me, yes, Nikola Jokic won the MVP and he had a terrific season, but to me, Joel Embiid during the regular season was the best player in the NBA. And I think at times, despite a torn meniscus, he looked still like the best player in the NBA, especially when you account for defense and what he does on both ends of the floor. So, yeah, I mean, to me, I don't think here's the decision. I think it's as soon as he is eligible, as soon as, this offseason when you can offer it to him and he's eligible to sign it, I'm putting it in front of his face and I'm asking him to sign it. And then I figure the rest out later. Because, look, let's say you don't do it. A world where you don't do it and then he signs somewhere else. I mean, the first place he's going to want to go is Miami, and that will be horrific in Sixers land. That will just make you look bad. That would the fan base would kill you, and it'd just be bad. But if he signs and he gets hurt in 2 years, I mean, what would your chances have been with that money otherwise? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I just don't. I don't see I mean, I get the downside. The downside is he's had injuries in the past, and big men don't last. I get that, but I want his prime. I want to try to win something with his prime. I want that in Philadelphia. I don't want that somewhere else.
Paul,
so
really quick.
I am getting it to him immediately.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, like, there's a part of him that's Bill Walton to me. Bill Walton won a championship in Portland. He was a league MVP, but around all that, he couldn't stay healthy. But when he was healthy, he was this dominant force of nature. And to me, if you take that person and combine him with Hakeem Olajuwon, because to me, that's the closest physical comp we have for what Embiid can physically do at times. That's what Embiid is. He's Bill Walton meets Hakeem to me, and I just don't give up on that guy. And I don't care that the league is dominated by perimeter players. You don't give up on special talent in any sport.
I agree. I mean, it's this narrative that only guards can win. Because, I mean, you tell the Portland Trailblazers that, you can win with guards, because they arguably had the best guard duo in the NBA for years, and they haven't won anything. They have, arguably the most dangerous scorer in the NBA, and they haven't won anything. Tell James Harden that. James Harden hasn't won anything, and he's been one of the most dominant offensive guards in NBA history. So it's not, to me, I get the idea of there are certain things you need. Like, in this NBA, you need to be able to hit threes at an appropriate, like, you need to be able to hit them at a reasonable level, because 3 points are worth more than 2, and that's just the way the league is trending. But look at the Utah Jazz, who shot the three better than any team in the NBA. Where are they right now? They're at home. So it's not. I think there's more than one way to win a championship. Like, shooting wasn't a priority until the Golden State Warriors won a championship. Then all of a sudden, that's where the league trended. But now we have in the NBA, the number 1 and number 2 MVP candidates were centers. And it's feasible to think that their teams could win a championship over the course of the next couple seasons. So, I just think the premise that you can't win with a center, I think, is outdated. With that said, not even outdated, that's not the right term, but you know what I mean? It's not correct. But I think they do need perimeter creation in order to help Joel Embiid and to get him to that next level. And to be a more complete team. So I don't think it's that you can't win without Joel Embiid. I think it's that if you want to have Joel Embiid and you want him to be the guy, you still need a perimeter scorer, shot creator to help him out.
Yeah, and every superstar needs help. No one can do it by themselves. He's Paul Hudrick, at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. Check out his work over there, coverage of the Sixers and the NBA, 973ESPN.com. And we appreciate him joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Paul, feel better, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Appreciate it, man. Take care.